Between Intention and Interpretation by Rue of House of Keperu. There is something profoundly strange about being human that most of us move through our entire lives without stopping to notice. I experience myself completely differently from the way you experience me. I have never actually met myself the way another human being meets me. I have never watched myself enter a room without knowing who I am. I have never heard my voice without already knowing the consciousness behind the words. I have never looked into my own eyes as a stranger and wondered what kind of person lives behind them. I experience myself from the inside. Everyone else experiences me from the outside. I know the thought before the sentence, the intention before the action, the emotion behind the expression, the history behind the reaction, the struggle behind the silence. But you receive none of that directly. You receive evidence of me, my words, my tone, my face, my behavior, my choices, my consistency, my contradictions, even the things I refuse to say. And from those fragments, your consciousness constructs a version of who you believe I am. And here is where the mystery deepens. I am doing the exact same thing to you. I have never experienced your consciousness. I have never occupied your I-be, carried every memory you carry, felt every wound you have felt, inherited every association your mind has accumulated, or experienced the thousands of moments that shaped the person standing before me. I encounter your behavior and attempt to reason backward toward the invisible consciousness producing it. So perhaps human interaction was never simply me talking to you. It is my internal experience becoming thought, thought becoming language, language becoming sound, sound entering your consciousness interpreting those symbols through everything you have ever experienced, and from that interpretation, constructing meaning. And all of this happens in seconds, while we casually call it communication. Words themselves are not thoughts. Words are symbols attempting to transport pieces of thought across the invisible distance separating one consciousness from another. I encode what exists within me into language. You decode that language through the architecture within you. That is why I can say one sentence to 10 people and somehow create 10 different experiences. They heard the same sound, but they did not receive it through the same consciousness. And suddenly, misunderstanding becomes less mysterious. How many times have we screamed internally, "That is not what I meant!" without realizing that the other person never had direct access to what we meant. They received the expression of the intention, not the intention itself. Somewhere between what I intended, what I expressed, what you perceived, and what you interpreted, an entirely new version of me was created inside your consciousness. Think about what that means. There may be hundreds or thousands of versions of you presently existing inside the minds of other human beings. Someone remembers you as kind. Someone remembers you as difficult. Someone thinks you are brilliant. Someone misunderstood you completely. Someone remembers something you said 20 years ago that you no longer remember saying. Someone may love a version of you that no longer exists. Someone may dislike a version of you that never existed at all. Yet none possesses the complete you, because the only consciousness that has accompanied you through every second of your existence is your own. And even you are still discovering yourself. This should produce neither arrogance nor insecurity. It should produce humility. Because if another human being cannot completely experience me from the outside, then I must admit that I cannot completely experience them either. I have met you, but I have never experienced being you. I can observe your decisions without carrying the consciousness that made them, I can judge the chapter I witnessed without having read every page that came before it. This does not mean behavior has no consequences or that discernment should disappear. It means judgment should recognize the limits of its own information. Perhaps this is one of the deepest disciplines of awareness, learning to distinguish the human being from our interpretation of the human being. We walk around believing we know people when much of what we actually know is our experience of them. And they walk around believing they know us while carrying their experience of us. Somewhere underneath all those interpretations stands the living person, changing, becoming, contradicting yesterday, discovering tomorrow, never completely captured by another person's definition. This is Keperu at the level of human perception. You are becoming while the world is continually constructing versions of who it thinks you are. Therefore, do not spend your existence desperately trying to control every version of yourself living inside other people's minds. You cannot enter their consciousness and edit the interpretation. Your responsibility is deeper. Make your intention clear. Make your speech deliberate. Make your behavior consistent. Remain willing to correct misunderstanding and continue becoming. Let your Ren be established through what you repeatedly embody rather than what you desperately demand others believe about you. And extend that same mercy of complexity toward everyone you encounter. Listen longer. Observe carefully. Ask before assuming. Remember that behind every face is an entire universe of internal experience that you will never completely enter. We are separate centers of consciousness standing inside the same reality, throwing symbols across the distance, hoping another mind catches enough of what we mean to understand us. And perhaps genuine human connection begins the moment we finally recognize this. I know myself from the inside. You know me from the outside. I know you from the outside. You know yourself from the inside. Somewhere between intention and interpretation, we meet. And awareness is learning never to confuse the version inside our mind with the totality of the human being standing before us. Ashe.